4:32 a.m. October 21st, 2025, along a narrow gorge on the Belgorod border, Russia. A convoy was moving quietly through the darkness, 23 military vehicles carrying 120 tons of advanced drone components smuggled from China, enough to build 2,000 suicide drones worth over $120 million. For Moscow, it was salvation, a shipment that could turn Ukraine's skies into a sea of fire. Guarded by 4 Panzer S-1 systems, 4 armored carriers, 10 reconnaissance drones, and 87 elite soldiers, the convoy was believed to be untouchable, but Ukraine was watching. Recon drones tracked the column for hours, streaming live footage to Kiev's command center. Immediately, 100 Wild Hornet drones ripped across the night sky from Ukrainian territory, screaming toward the gorge. Seconds later, the mountain erupted. Fire, steel, and chaos colliding in one brutal heartbeat. Could Russia's defenses withstand the storm or be buried beneath it? Let's find out. October 21st, 2025, 4:32 a.m., just outside Belgorod. Under the pale glow of floodlights, a line of 10 cargo containers crawled down the frostbitten highway, their steel sides painted with fake company logos. Kavrov Freight. To any satellite, they looked like civilian transport trucks. But intelligence gathered by Ukraine's Horizon 12 network told a very different story. Inside those containers lay over 120 tons of high-grade drone components. Materials imported from China through the port of Vladivostok. 60,000 lithium-ion battery cells, 10,000 precision brushless motors, 5,000 autopilot control units, and hundreds of crates filled with carbon fiber wings. Enough to assemble 2,000 combat drones, the kind that could darken the skies over Kiev for weeks. If the shipment reached its final destination, Russia's largest drone production plant in Kazan, it would tip the balance of the war. The Russians knew it too. That's why the convoy was wrapped in steel and in fear. At the front and rear rolled 4 Panzer S-1 air defense vehicles, radar dishes sweeping the night sky in constant rotation. Between them, 4 armored personnel carriers with 6 barrel cannons and 20 elite Spetsnaz troops. Another 50 soldiers rode in 5 troop trucks, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Above, 10 reconnaissance drones rotated in endless shifts, 5 airborne, 5 recharging, transmitting images back to a Russian command post every 5 seconds. No bird, no cloud, no shadow escaped their watch. To Moscow, this convoy was untouchable, a moving fortress. But 300 miles away, inside a dimly lit operations room in Dnipro, Ukrainian officers were staring at the same Kyiv, intercepted from the convoy's own drone uplink. One of them whispered, if the convoy reached Kazan, Russia would build a storm of machines capable of striking every Ukrainian city at once. But if it could be stopped tonight before sunrise, that storm would die before it began. The question hanging in the air was cold and final. Could Ukraine destroy the convoy before it disappeared into the heart of Russia? 3 hours after the convoy crossed the Belgorod border, the order came through a secure encrypted channel from Kiev. Intercept at the gorge, no civilian risk, no mistakes. The plan had been built in silence over weeks. Ukraine's intelligence teams had mapped every contour of the terrain, a narrow mountain pass just 12 miles from the frontier, where the road coiled between 2 sheer cliffs. The Russians had no choice but to go through it. To them, it was just another stretch of highway. To Ukraine, it was the perfect kill box. Before dawn, 4 Ukrainian agents, dressed as construction workers, each held a small black detonator linked to 4 buried mines. 2 at the canyon's entrance, 2 at the exit. Each device was buried under gravel, linked to a handheld detonator no bigger than a phone. Timing was of the essence. A second earlier, and the lead panzer could have aimed its cannon at the hillside. A second too late, and the convoy would escape. They had been there for 3 hours. The agents lay motionless in shallow dugouts covered with dirt and leaves. Faces smeared with soil, bodies numb from stillness. Mosquitoes ate through sleeves. Mosquitoes bit through their sleeves. One of them, the youngest, had been holding the trigger switch so long that sweat pooled beneath his gloves. He hadn't moved, hadn't even relieved himself. His entire body locked in focus. He thought of home only once, then shoved the thought away. Far away, inside a command bunker in Dnipro, The Ukrainian mission leader watched the dots on his satellite map converge. The entire room counted in time with the convoy's slow crawl toward the gorge. When the lead panzer nosed into the pass, the colonel's voice came across the comms. Flat, steady, absolute. All teams, prepare to light the fuse. The mountains waited in silence, holding their breath. The trap was set. Before the first blast shatters the night, show your support with a like and a subscribe. Now watch how the trap was sprung. 5:11 a.m. The convoy crawled into the mountain gorge, engines rumbling between two cliffs that rose like prison walls. Two Panzer S-1s led the way, radar dishes sweeping the cliffs in wide arcs. Behind them followed the armored carriers, the troop trucks, and 10 cargo containers that carried the heart of Russia's drone program. Slow and steady, the commander muttered. His voice echoed through the comms. He had ordered 1 Panzer and 1 armored vehicle to move ahead for reconnaissance. Their sensors scanned every ridge, every hollow. Overhead, 10 recon drones floated in formation, 5 active, 5 resting, sending live images back to headquarters every 5 seconds. Everything looked calm. Too calm. Then the mountains exploded. The first 2 explosions struck with a combined force of 800 pounds of TNT. The lead panzer lifted off the ground, crashed onto its side, and disintegrated into shrapnel. 3 seconds later, a third blast tore through the rear, followed by a delayed fourth charge that detonated 10 seconds late, just as the convoy halted in the middle of the gorge. The delay, caused by a Ukrainian agent's slick, sweating hand, turned out to be perfect. The truck stopped at the exact coordinates planned by Ukrainian command. The earth collapsed around them. Tons of rock, nearly 4,000 cubic feet, rained down, sealing both exits in an avalanche of dust and fire. A troop carrier flipped. Another was crushed under falling stone. The air filled with screams, smoke, and the metallic tang of blood and diesel. Ambush! Contact front! A voice roared over the comms. Spetsnaz soldiers jumped from their trucks, pressing to the cliffs, rifles raised. The 6-barrel cannons on the APCs fired 3,000 rounds a minute, carving glowing trails across the ridges. The gorge shook under the sound of war, but the enemy was invisible. Every shot hit rock and came back as echo. Overhead, the recon drones tried to stabilize, but the explosions blinded their cameras. The thermal feeds returned nothing but a wall of heat. Flames at 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit distorting every signal. The Panzer radars were blind, overwhelmed by debris. Inside their cockpits, operators cursed and slammed fists on dead screens. The commander shouted into his headset, "Suppress the ridges! Find them!" But there was nothing to find. The cliffs answered with silence. Every muzzle flash from the Russians betrayed their position, each burst of fire lighting their silhouettes against the smoke. Then a fuel truck ignited. The explosion was so fierce it registered on seismic sensors 20 miles away. Fire leapt across the canyon walls, turning the night into molten daylight. The remaining vehicles melted into black silhouettes. Men coughed and stumbled through ash and debris. The confidence was gone. The air was thick with fear. From 2 miles away, a Ukrainian commander watched through binoculars. The gorge burned like a furnace. Columns of smoke rising 600 feet into the air. His voice was steady when he spoke into the radio. Phase 2. Launch the swarm. The ambush was over. The real assault was about to begin. Don't leave yet. The game has only just begun. At 5:27 a.m., from 5 hidden launch points scattered across open plains 3 miles away, 100 Wild Hornet kamikaze drones burst into the air. Their engines screamed at 150 miles per hour, climbing fast before hugging the mountain ridges. They flew low, barely 40 feet off the ground, using the cliffs to stay invisible to radar. Each drone carried a 12-pound thermobaric charge, small but deadly enough to melt steel. As they crossed the ridgeline, their onboard sensors synchronized into one digital hive mind. From above, they looked like a shimmering wave of metal slicing through the dawn. Inside the gorge, Russian troops were still reeling from the earlier explosions. 37 soldiers dead, 2 Panzer S-1s destroyed, and fires climbing past 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. The remaining 2 Panzers were already tracking phantom contacts, their radar feeds scrambled by debris and heat. Then the alarms blared again. 12 new blips appeared, then 20, then 50. Targets inbound, low altitude, Multiple directions, shouted the lead operator. He barely finished the sentence before the sky filled with shrieking dots. The Panzers opened fire, each gun spitting 20,500 rounds a minute, tracer lines slicing the smoky air. The cliffs erupted with sparks and echoing thunder. The drones had split into waves, using the terrain's blind angles to dive unseen. Within 30 seconds, the swarm dropped over the ridgeline and into the canyon. 30 drones were torn apart by shrapnel, but the remaining 70 pushed through. They dived like falling stars. 50 drones went straight for the armored vehicles and Panzers. The first struck an APC broadside, blowing its 6-barrel cannon into molten scrap. A second slammed into a troop truck, igniting fuel and ammunition. Within seconds, the gorge was filled with overlapping explosions, each equivalent to 20 pounds of TNT, enough to blow men off their feet and tear steel apart. Soldiers screamed orders, but radio channels were gone, overwhelmed by electromagnetic interference from the blast wave. One Panzer tried to reposition, its driver reversing into burning debris. Too late. 3 drones struck it head-on, the combined detonation vaporizing the turret. The remaining 20 drones banked sharply and locked onto the cargo containers. They attacked in pairs, 2 per truck. The impacts came like hammer blows. 10 explosions in a line, each sending a geyser of flame 40 feet high. The air turned orange, the ground split, and then came silence. When the smoke began to clear, the gorge was gone. All 10 containers destroyed, 87 men, dead or missing. A black plume of smoke climbed 700 feet into the morning sky, visible from the border itself. From a forward post, the Ukrainian observer whispered into his mic, voice steady and cold. "All units disengage." The swarm did its job. Behind him, the mountains trembled as the last explosions faded. The gorge that once held Moscow's most guarded convoy was now nothing but a burning graveyard of metal, smoke, and silence. 6:02 a.m. The battle was over, but the gorge was still alive with fire. The air shimmered from the heat. Craters, twisted steel, and the wrecks of armored trucks littered the narrow pass like a scrapyard of war. What had been a convoy of 23 vehicles and 87 men was now an inferno stretching half a mile long. From a Ukrainian surveillance drone circling high above, the images were unreal. 10 cargo containers lay split open like crushed soda cans. The materials inside, 120 tons of lithium batteries, carbon fiber, and electronic cores, burned with a toxic blue flame. The temperature on the canyon floor exceeded 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt the very equipment Russia had hoped would turn the tide of the war. For 6 hours, black smoke climbed 2,000 feet into the morning sky, visible from both sides of the border. Russian rescue helicopters tried to approach, but were forced back by secondary explosions. The blasts registered as seismic events, rattling windows in nearby Belgorod. At 8:45 a.m., Moscow finally confirmed what their radar already knew. The convoy was gone. The losses went far beyond the trucks. Inside those containers was the backbone of Russia's new drone fleet, enough to build 2,000 suicide drones, each worth roughly $60,000. Overnight, a potential $120 million strike force had been erased. The supply line connecting China's factories to Russia's front lines had snapped clean in two. In the Kremlin, silence hung heavy in the war room. Reports spoke of total destruction, loss of contact, and no survivors. Insurance underwriters in Shanghai froze future shipments. The Chinese manufacturers behind the deal went dark. Within 24 hours, Russia's drone program had suffered a setback no missile strike could have achieved. It was now months, maybe a year behind schedule. For Ukraine, victory was measured not in wreckage, but in survival. By dawn, all 4 agents who had planted the mines were safely across the border. Their mission had lasted 12 hours. Their total cost barely $18,000, a fraction of what one Panzer shell cost Russia to fire. That's the cruel arithmetic of modern war. Intelligence beats armor, precision beats numbers, and courage still decides the rest. As the sun rose over the smoking gorge, one Ukrainian officer whispered to his team, "Steel can be replaced, men can't." For those who watch this war from afar, it was more than another explosion on a map. It was a reminder that the smallest act of defiance carried out by those who refuse to surrender can still reshape the balance of the world. The mountains may fall silent, but stories like this will echo far beyond the battlefield. What do you think this strike means for the future of modern warfare and for Russia's next move? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe intelligence and courage still win wars, hit like, share this story, and subscribe for more real operations that changed everything.